Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Jose Sanchez, I'm the director of Common'hood, and I'm starting a new stream today. I'm excited to be here, sharing some new ideas for builds within Common'hood. We'll see what we can do in terms of what we built so far, and maybe start something new on this side. I just want to make sure we see if we can group some of the things we've done, maybe show some techniques of like grouping designs together. Kind of, we can do variations of the design, converting this into a blueprint first. So I'm gonna go ahead and save this with a different name. Start cleaning up a little bit. Because we can always go back to this, right? We can always go back to the design here. So I'm going to be removing some of the furniture just to see if we can do a grouping of the design, clean without any furniture, so that we have it, so we could actually share it with the community in case you want to try your own decorations and maybe adaptations of this design. We can share it online after the stream as well, and see if we're within the limit. There's the blueprint system has a limitation of how many blocks you can actually group. I think that's kind of it right now, the design that we currently have. I almost feel like we are still missing a few blocks somewhere here. Just adding a few more details to this design. Let's see if we can get something going. I also feel like we should kind of add more structure to this, but perhaps we're good to go right now. Let's just try it. I like saving things before attempting. In case anything goes wrong, we can always go back to this, right? So I'm gonna call it build 4B. And let's just see how much we can group together. As you can see, when we enter group mode, we have a certain limit. So we can actually group pretty quickly. Basically adding all the elements here because we know that, and I think that we're kind of moving pretty fast through the design. It might be fine to group everything into one blueprint, right? So here we go, just clicking through everything. I think we shouldn't have any issues with them. And it's definitely we'll see if we manage. I think we're gonna manage to include everything in this design into the blueprint. The good thing about blueprints is that as much as we the group will operate as one single block, you can still ungroup them, right? Initially we didn't have that functionality, and after thinking a lot about it, we realized that the best way in which people can really expand on other people's design is that you not only build your own blueprints, but you can actually ungroup the blueprints of others and then modify them, right? So that's kind of the idea or the principle. There might be a few more features that might be useful. Oh, we're actually, I think we reached the limit. This might not work actually. We're gonna have to try again, maybe without, as you can see that the meter reach the maximum, and it's still trying to kind of include a few more. Let's just see. Let's call it depth design. One. Yeah, so the group failed. That's because we actually tried to pack it too much. We should have. Let's try to remove a few blocks on this side. I think these are kind of like prune a little bit the design to see if we can get away with. I like this side over here. I think the stuff that we were adding at the end, it could be like optional. Maybe slightly shorter on this side. This could be fine, I think. We can try that. Let's try it again. We're going to be a bit more careful when we're reaching the end. Let's see if we don't include more pieces than what we actually can. I think some of the problem might be also some of the columns that we had, which have a lot of geometry, right? For those that are curious, technically what we're doing in the background when we group a blueprint, we actually merge all the geometry as one. So this part might have a lot of geometry. So it becomes a little bit easier to render into the game. So there's a bit of optimization there that happens in the process of grouping. But we keep track of everything that you build, of all the singular objects and all the different locations and, you know, the timestamp in which you build something, so that we could recreate it from the blueprint information, right? Oof, we're getting very close. I don't want to reach the end. One more. Yeah, I think we're going to be short here as well. We're going to definitely have to reduce the number of units. I mean, I think if we keep going here, we're going to reach the limit, right? So let me cancel that. Let's just think, what else can we remove? So I'm going to trim a little bit over this side. Maybe this could be an optional as well, an optional veranda. Definitely this could be optional too. We definitely want to keep that area here. I feel like the staircase takes a lot of blocks. It's going to be a little bit tighter at the time. And definitely we can cut a little bit on this side. We're still keeping kind of the general shape of the design, I think so. Let's see if we can group that. Let's just try it again. It's kind of like a painting tool here. In the future, we will expand the blueprint system to really allow much larger blueprints. It does present some challenges to do so, but that's something that we anticipate kind of growing as we move along. Especially if we definitely see that players are interested in building things and building larger things, right? We always thought that the blueprint system would operate a little bit more like building furniture, not like full buildings, right? Like sharing building blocks, parts of buildings in a way. And that could be reusable as opposed to like saving a file where you can have a complete design, right? But it's certainly possible to use the blueprints in that form too. So I think we're kind of close, but I think we managed to include everything. Let me just double check very well that everything has been included. I think we have it there, right? Let's try so this time. Let's just save that. So great, we managed to build a blueprint. The cool thing now is that we could just collect this object, right? So you can see here we have this design grouped, and we can just move it around. We could even in our blueprints go and check what are the required materials for this. So there's a lot of materials required, but it shouldn't be difficult to rebuild, especially if we have, you know, in the infinite sandbox, you could have infinite materials. This should be relatively straightforward. And it has all these dependencies. The blueprint system shows you like all the different blocks that are included in the blueprint, so you can actually use those for other projects as well. Those are included in the blueprint. I think the camera is just locked here. Give me 1 second, I'll be back with you just a minute. So sorry about that. We just ran into a crash, and I made a quick note for us to kind of fix that as soon as possible. It's certainly not what we wanted to happen, but yeah, it does happen sometimes that we encounter new issues. So we're trying to move quickly to fix those things. So let's double check the. So our blueprint is still here, right? This save file it's not including the blueprint that we had grouped, but we can actually see that we can go and find those blueprints in the blue container, right? So yeah, we have it here. That's great. I'm gonna bring 100 of those. That's gonna handy. And you can see we can add our design in different forms to maybe this side. In case we wanted to expand it in a different direction. Maybe we wanted the light, right? So we have this blueprint. I'm going to be sharing this blueprint online with everyone. And we can keep expanding it or decorating it differently if we want, right? In case someone wants to just try to do their own variations and whatnot, right? As I mentioned, all the blueprints will contain their dependencies, which is these blocks that we've used for them. And I was thinking what it would be like to start thinking of some different details. Maybe like in this version, we could start thinking of something more. Yeah, I was thinking some form of panels that would have more detail to them. Let's just sketch something and see if we can prototype some ideas for a new design, right? So we have this blueprint here. That will be our base blueprint. We have these concrete panels that would be interesting to try. I'm gonna let's bring some wood. Maybe leave behind some of these blocks. I don't think we need to use those anymore. And I wonder what is the right scale for this. It could be that we do something a lot finer. Let's just do a quick prototype and see how it would work, right? So I'm thinking, could we just do a panel made out of steel, almost like a window frame, but instead of using glass, we could use some form of wooden structure that we basically separate, create a little bit of a like a panel or something like this, right? That could. So some of these things, for instance, might take a little bit of time to build the first one, right? You'd be like, oh, but then when you group things and you can just start stamping them, they could be really useful. What I do want to check if I'm doing this is that we are being careful with our modularity, right? Because we do have a panel that has certain size, and it's not necessary, the game is not asking you to keep track of modularity, right? But I think it would be nice to have something with similar proportions, right? So let's just redo this, thinking of what if we would do the same proportion, right? So I'm thinking something like from here all the way there. And if we think of it's 3, like that. And once we group it, we can actually rotate it in all directions. So it's actually, it's nice to kind of think of these blocks and pieces that we can create first, like laying flat, right? I'm just gonna do one prototype of this and see if we like it. Maybe we want it like much finer. I'll just prototype first flat some ideas and then see if they make sense, right? And how they look. There might be things that we can improve. Hey Ghosty. Someone mentioned that the Steam broadcast died. I have here, I did stop for a moment. We had a crash, but I don't know if that's it's return. Could you let me know if it's not running for some reason? Yeah, so here we have our first issue, right? So because we didn't pay attention to the separation of these blocks, right? We either, like this is not gonna fit really neatly one to the next. But we can try it. Let's see if this idea would actually work out, right? So I'm gonna group all these elements now. And I'm gonna call it panel. Two. I should be more careful with my conventions, naming conventions, but so we have this panel, right? This should fit on top of this, but we don't necessarily want to use it on top of the first one. We want to go and get a few of those and see how they actually work together. So we can start analyzing a little bit how we can use them for a bigger wall. Yeah, so here we go. We've got 100 of those. We should actually build things here because it's going to be easier to come back. So let's think of how this is working. So this is what I was thinking, right? So you would have these panels next to each other, right? And so it does work well in terms of the continuation of them, right? So you could group them as a bigger sequence. Something, look, I think it's this robot that is actually getting in the way of needs power, right? Okay. Let me get some power supply to just be able to get rid of that robot for a second. There we go. I think that robot was getting in the way of our design. There we go. And I was hoping that we would be able to do something like, what if we would have like a bigger panel like this, right? Then we can like go back and remove some of them and maybe adjust them. So for instance, what if we would remove this one and replace it? Let's just be careful on the rotation here. So something like maybe like this. I wish we could, you know. That's something that I'm curious about. I wonder what you think. Would you like to enable intersections when you're building, right? We were always thinking that Common'hood would be more of a, you know, you're designing a little bit more carefully, like thinking on kind of a bit of logic of assembly, like, I don't know, maybe, but that might be a bit too much realism for creativity. So like in this case, for instance, that connection is allowed because it's not intersecting. But if over there intersects, the system doesn't allow us to do so. But it might look better, right? Let me just do it a little bit more like this. So we're gonna put it here like this. And let's do another one of this. Sometimes these rotations can get tricky. So let's just put it in this direction, rotate, rotate, rotate. Just gonna give it a little bit of an angle here, a bit less than before, right? Something like that. I'm playing with the idea that some of these panels are kind of semi-open, and then I'm gonna group the whole thing and see how they look as a group, as a collection. So sorry, sometimes I have to concentrate a little bit on the. So these two would actually be aligned with each other, right? And let's do one that it's kind of completely open over this side, maybe even a 90-degree. Or, you know, I like these sides that are, you know, something like that, maybe 90-degree. So what I'm imagining is, let's just, if we don't like the way this come about, we can actually come back to the save file, right? So let's save it with a name C in an ungrouped form, and then let's just group it, right? So let's just so we have this group. So let's call it something like a facade. Study 1. There we go. And so that's our facade. And you see, now we can obviously place it in the same orientation, but we can change the orientation. Let's see how it looks standing. The problem is, yeah, I can see the problem that we're facing. So because of this construction, we selected the last object we select, or the first object we select kind of becomes the pivot, right? So you see what we're doing here, right? So we could place it over there, like a facade, let's say, something like that, right? You get what I'm going for. But it's kind of difficult to put it in the floor. Let me just get a few more of those. I feel like I have to group it again, being a little bit more careful of where I pick the group. So let's do a scaffold that would work as a mock-up for this facade system. So I'm going to group that. We can even use this module, which is a little bit more pre-made as a right. So we have this module. I didn't even think that this could actually work for this module necessarily, but it might. So let's just try it. This is the orientation that we started with, right? And you see how the pivot point is, if we wanted to place it in the, from the bottom, which would be ideal, we should have selected a different item first. So let's just, we'll return to that and do a new one. But for now, I think that we can figure out how to place it in the right orientation here as well. So something like this is what I'm thinking. Let's see how that looks, right? So that's kind of what I was going for. You see we could add another one, but again the pivot point is kind of affecting the way we are able to do the placement. So these are kind of the issues that we kind of deal with when we're designing blueprints for the game. So blueprints can get very, tricky sometimes, but the idea is that once you have them, they're actually really easy to work with, right? You can just copy paste them and like make your NPCs build new ones and so on. So, but it does require a bit of effort to kind of build the first few. I'm trying to align it to the previous construction, right? Why do I get the feeling that it's still not in the right position? Oof, that's almost, I think it's kind of aligned so we can actually see. I was curious of how this facade would actually look as a sequence. There's more than one next to each other. So let's try that. For some reason it's not letting me put it any closer. I was hoping that we would have like more continuity. You know what we could try to do is just put them side by side in floor. The issue is that I don't really like when this this kind of repetition, right? Like the fact that the modules would allow us to really have something, larger that basically is more different in a way. But I think it's kind of an interesting idea and it's an interesting concept that we can develop further. Right? So these panels are actually relatively successful for this purpose, right? So I just want to do a test first. You see how we have these panels. What we're gonna do is just group them from the bottom. So I want to double check that we are grouping things correctly in the future, right? So in this case, our pivot point is in the bottom here, right? And that's not ideal. I mean, it certainly works for something like this, right? More like a bristle kind of design. Let's just kind of get more of those, and we can see we can group them together into something interesting. So I'm gonna get 100 of those. I like testing things here. Let's just bring a little bit of like a concrete base. We haven't been playing with concrete at all, but you know, that's one of the materials that we have in the game. And as mentioned, we definitely want to be expanding on the number of materials that we have available over time. Yeah, we can do here something like this. So this system serves really well for like this kind of bristle kind of sequence. It's something that still kind of works like a wall maybe, but it still kind of offers a bit of transparency. I like designing kind of maybe not just rooms all the time, but like what would it be, like a terrace, right? Or like somewhere you could have a pit fire, maybe some garden. So let's try to do a little small design, more of a bit more intimate space here. Using a concrete base and maybe some of these bristle kind of elements. But we're gonna leave a little bit of gap there. Hint that there could be a little bit of like soil. We actually have a soil material, right? So let's just go and get that. So we have soil. Soil works very similar to concrete, right? So you can, but soil would allow you to plant. You know, to use it for planting, right? So you could imagine, you know, this being kind of a garden. I like the idea that you have a little bit of soil kind of coming out on the side. Maybe we're holding on to that kind of wall structure. Let's just decorate it a little bit. Kind of like a little design, a moment here where perhaps we could send a little island of where people can hang out, maybe have a barbecue. All right, why don't we just add a barbecue? Originally from Chile, so our barbecue culture is very strong. I couldn't avoid wanting to have a barbecue in the game. And it seems to resonate with a kind of like community building activities that the game wants to kind of foster. Run into an issue there. We are creating an invisible amount of concrete, but I'll take note of that. I think that shouldn't happen. We shouldn't have those kind of concrete pieces. Able to be so thin in a way that you don't see them. So let's think. Let's do another wall in this direction. For good measure, we're gonna put a little guitar here, just to suggest that the kind of things could happen. Yeah, maybe some plants. And it would be nice to start kind of including some. I think I'm kind of colliding with something else over there. Yeah, so I think we this is in a way what we like doing within the game, right? Like you can actually take a screenshot of that, very quickly kind of block out some ideas of, hey, this could be like an interesting, barbecue space, and really invite people to design kind of interesting habitats for the characters in Common'hood, right? So let me know if you have any ideas or questions. I think we want to continue considering what to add in terms of content. Like all these designs is something we can group and share with our online system. Like if you haven't tried it before, Common'hood has a blueprint sharing system, so you can just upload your blueprints and other people can download them, and you can assign them for the NPCs, the characters within the game, to build them for you, or you can try to build them yourself. It really offers multiple ways in which your ideas could actually be shared. Take a little screenshot here. What we have sometimes we could consider is having some photo mode where you can turn off UI. Like we usually use some of those tools from our development side to add to create screenshots of the game and to create different content, but we were never sure if people would like using those for sometimes screenshotting or creating your own ideas of design, right? So here we have like a little barbecue space, and that was actually pretty quick to create with the with the blueprint that we did here, this kind of bristlenail kind of sequence, right? I think with still the rotation could be a little bit more intuitive. Because you're doing rotations in like potentially in 3 axes, it could become, you know, tricky, like not so intuitive, and we definitely want to just make sure that we keep improving our building tools in a way that that makes sense, and for people to kind of create things quicker and more intuitively somehow. But that's not a very straightforward thing to resolve, because it really depends on how people would want to use these tools in the first place, right? Let's just try to see if we could combine what we were doing before with sometimes in these cases, I mean, I think we are colliding on that side, right? We can dismantle some of that if we wanted to change the design more drastically. I mean, we do have it grouped, so it's easy to go back to that, right? I personally really like when elements in design don't really necessarily match with each other perfectly. There's this sense of like, oh, that actually it's a bit larger than the other piece, right? Again, but that's maybe just me. I guess we could try to use these pieces in different orientations, right? But I do want to extend this the other way around. That's kind of what I'm trying to do, but I need to get it like that. Yeah, this could work, but it's not going to match very well, because you see, I should be grabbing it from the opposite side. From this side, right? But we have an idea of what we're trying to do here, and I think that would be what we're needing is a form of scaffold, right? I wanted to extend that kind of facade design further in that direction. Could try, let's see, to design it flat in the ground. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 1 in that direction. Could be 2 more. No, just maybe 1 more in that direction. See if we could place it, right? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think if my spatial orientation works, it would be something like that, what I'm trying to build, right? It's a sequence that would go in this direction like that. Let's just try grouping them. This is 5 panels. Take that back. Now we we have it grouped, right? Something like that. We wanted to do it the other way around, so let's just see if we can rotate it now in this direction. It kind of works. Look, I'm gonna put it in front of the other one and then delete the previous one. See if that works. Just gonna have a little distance. Conceptually, that's kind of, you know, maybe the idea is there, right? Of something that would work as a facade for that part, and maybe like a veranda, like a terrace for this upper area. This room feels small, but I like how these kind of things are kind of feeling that they're kind of close, but not necessarily like completely enclosing the space, right? I don't know, this is just, obviously, the game gives you the chance to build whatever you want, but it's about you having your own kind of exploration. Personally, I love architecture, so I have like very specific ideas of what I'm looking for, something relatively modern, right? Something modular, something that that feels that it's modular, but also kind of a little bit playful at times, and kind of let's just give it a different role. Last time we actually built something like we built a brewery, right? So let's try to. So Ghost is making a suggestion here. So he's saying, how about a pivot point system for the building system? The idea would be to click and place the pivot point. Yeah, so I think that for the longest time I had like lots of sketches about a pivot point system, which we've never done in a way, because the pivot gets determined automatically when you place the object, right? So you place the object, or you start grouping the object, and that will define the pivot point. When you open the blueprint viewer, it should, if I'm thinking maybe along the lines of what you're suggesting, Ghosty, would be to see where the pivot point is, and maybe you can just drag it and move it somewhere else, right? So in that way you would know exactly how the blueprint should rotate and be placed. So you have a bit of editing options. Alternatively, you could even have more than one pivot system, so you can flip between multiple pivots. I really like that idea. I think that that's something that should definitely go in the backlog of development. Having multiple pivots that are important to the geometry, depending on what you're building, would be like really useful as well. Especially if some people would put special care on building blueprints that are kind of very usable. Maybe adding to that, and this is what I go, keep thinking as a developer, like how could we even make it more intuitive? Like if you think about things like Fortnite, right, or other games that have wall systems, those walls automatically snap to each other, right? And those are because you really kind of build much detail to that structure, but it's really easy and super fast to really kind of snap objects to one another, one up to the other one. So there's no reason why we couldn't build another kind of a snapping system where you could say, look, these two blocks are part of a family, or they should snap to one another. So in the blueprint viewer, being able to set that up, say, hey, if another unit like this one from this family comes along, snap it and put it instantly here, or snap it and put it instantly here, or here, or if you rotate it, instantly move it where it should go, right? But because the system is very flexible and very open-ended, we actually went for open-ended, flexible system prior to just really giving all these more advanced uses, because we obviously didn't know the community would want. But I keep thinking about like how can we make this system more intuitive? Like how do we make it more accessible, more fast to build, so that you could just go about like stamp elements and look at your design and think, you know, I like it. Maybe I would do something different. And yeah, I think that there's some kind of fun of being able to iterate quite rapidly with a design, right? There is a way of actually, let me just check here. So, yeah, I'm gonna come back to you with like more ideas and like discuss with the team what is reasonable to do within this further development, and especially if something resonates with you and you think, hey, yeah, that feature would be awesome, that would be great, just let us know, because we definitely can start prioritizing some of those things. I'm gonna just try to do a tailoring workshop. I like the idea of playing with garments. Let's see if we can get something. Maybe some of these couches. We've done this before, I think, but still could be fun to play a little bit more with that. Maybe this. Let's bring a carpet in. Why not? I feel like we ran out of. We used to have a lot more space here, but we ended up kind of having to shrink a bit the design based on just thinking of some of our characters in the game that have. You see, these objects are not having issues with intersection. So I think that what we're gonna do is offer a intersection-free mode, because I think that it would allow, you know, certain designs that are maybe not possible right now. Oop. I do always like putting some plants here and there, you know, let's just try to use some flowers. So this time we're kind of trying to create like a tailoring kind of space, like little community of associated with like tailoring. Totally imagine like some of our characters within the game just being really happy with the setup like this one. Like Ono is one of the characters that it's affiliated with like tailoring, building kind of a community tailoring shop, right? Some ideas of what could that become. I think that within the game you are offered to do some of this yourself, but they're never kind of explicit, like what should it look like, right? I think this is a kind of slightly different designs of what we've been doing before. I'm like taking some screenshots here. So yeah, let me know what you think. I think that, we have a comment from Charlotte. Hey, thank you guys. I appreciate the comments. I think we've been trying to do some of these streams. We just started streaming this week. There was the base building festival in Steam, so we thought, how can we just share a little bit more what you can do with the game, our own ideas of the blueprint system. And we're going to continue doing this. Like we definitely have been organizing to have some guests play multiplayer with a few people. So there's more content coming. It's exciting to see that I for the longest time wanted to just play, like designing and building something, and we're kind of modifying this design a little bit, coming up with new ideas, this kind of new style of construction, slightly different from what we had before, and like that we will be evolving not only our designs but the tools for designing and making Common'hood one of the like a very unique base building experience, one that has kind of really high customization options in terms of materials, and the whole kind of premise of what we're trying to do is that if you create a blueprint and you share that with the community, everybody wins in a way. Everybody gets more blueprints, more kind of elements that you can use, and basically the game gradually will become more and more kind of full of beautiful content, right? So we want to give you better tools to sharing those blueprints, downloading them, ranking them, or grouping them in different ways, so that you could just have families of groups that really kind of resonate with you and maybe that you find interesting. I think that was actually creating a bit of a collision conflict, right? But maybe you haven't really reached the end of the game, or you haven't explored enough the sandbox. And this might be kind of an interesting way of looking into, or you're kind of on the fence. We know that the game still has bugs, and maybe some people are waiting for the game to be like a lot less buggy to really jump into it. And we're working hard. We just put out an update at the beginning of this week. We're working on controller support as well. We want to bring the game to Steam Deck. We want to bring it to consoles, and keep over time just making the game more robust, so that all the flexibility, all the things that you can imagine building in it are possible, you know. Gradually become possible, right? We could maybe bring one of these guys. Actually got a different carpet. I think we have a few different carpets, and this is the plant I was looking for. I really like this one for some reason. It's kind of quite pretty. One of the things that we wanted to include as well, like small trees, like we've been realized that we have all sorts of different plants and farms, but like we really want to foster you know, communities that like you could envision communities that could like really work with different forms of cultivation and farming and forestry, right? So yeah, we have a lot of ideas of content that could expand in a way the game into interesting directions, right? So let's go around and add maybe some lamp here for our Taylor. Yeah, I think that this is kind of coming together. I think we're kind of using the frame that we've created in past streams, but like I feel like it feels quite different with this different facade. Hopefully that kind of looks like an interesting idea. Let me show you a little bit of something else what we did. We were kind of playing a little bit with this kind of facade system. Not everything has to be orthogonal necessarily, but you can see here we created also this barbecue stage kind of configuration. So this sandbox for me is kind of really sampling of the things that we could do in the main game. If you haven't tried the full game, I'm trying not to play the story mode within the stream because I don't want to spoil it for anybody. There are kind of certain puzzles in way, like every character that you kind of unlock or kind of befriend has it's a little bit of a challenge, and some of them are really easy to get because they tell you exactly the kind of mission that you should do to complete them, but many of them it's kind of really reading a little bit the room and understanding how can I befriend this character. Some of the characters what we really wanted to go for are resistant to being part of a community initially, right? There's a sense of mistrust. And we really wanted to convey that with a sense of resistance to becoming a collective, right? A group, right? And initially some characters I'm like, hey, get out of here, get out of my face. I don't really want to hang out with you. What are you doing here? And gradually you might be realizing that they have specific interests, or they might be interested in things that you're doing, and they might be able to join. So yeah, me playing the game through the story might spoil that experience for many of you. So we're kind of trying to spend more time in the sandbox, showing how the game really offers a really unique kind of base building approach to the genre, right? Hopefully something that with a sense of kind of optimism and a sense of kind of aesthetics that kind of, it's close to those that are interested in architecture and base building in general, right? So yeah, let me know if you think that playing the story would be interesting or useful, right? So maybe some of you are playing the story and struggling with some missions. I can certainly do a stream where we play the story together, like finish the whole game. But like again, this is actually also coming through Steam, so we don't want to spoil the game for players that might not have played it before. And I think that just offering ideas of what to build within the game could be more useful. But again, we're open to your suggestions. So I'm going to take a couple more screenshots here, and I think we're going to be wrapping it up for today. Someone is mentioning the grill dude took so long to figure out. Yeah, well, so here's the thing, right? Like we made a chart of characters, and some characters were like, okay, they tell you explicitly what they want, and other characters we really wanted to have a sense of like, I wonder what would make them tick, right? And that gives you a sense of the personality of the character, like a sense of motivations. So actually one of the last characters, I don't want to spoil it, I think that it's very cryptic, it's very challenging in a way, or we think that the story, the sequence, the quest line of these characters are kind of very, more complex, and it also talks how some characters are a lot more complex in their kind of motivations, right? So that's a little bit the idea behind. Some of the characters are very simple and they're kind of very straightforward with you. Some of them have a lot of kind of motives and things that maybe they're not sharing, and it's your journey of discovering how do you create a friendship with these characters, and how do you create like a family in a way with them throughout the story. So hopefully you get to kind of emotional moments as you play the game, because none of them are very easy, but if they really start kind of becoming part of your group or your family, they feel very rewarding to kind of work with them to build something quite special, right? So hopefully that comes across. But maybe not, maybe it's actually really difficult and it feels frustrating. So let us know. We can just, still we're kind of tuning and improving the game. I know the game is in release state, but we're actively working on the game and improving, balancing the game as well. There's certain contracts that we've been hearing that are quite difficult, so we will be adjusting the game as we move along, and certainly kind of bug fixing. We're kind of committed to continue that. Yeah, I hear you, Bella. Thanks for that. I agree. I think that the pacing, it's very different for me, that I've played the whole thing, kind of written the story to, in a way, tell the beats that I kind of intending, as opposed to just having you discover some of the things. So hopefully the stream that is kind of giving you the kind of the base building aspect, expanding on the base building aspect. As I mentioned, I think one of the things that we will do is play the multiplayer, right? I have been organizing guests could be fun to talk to, and that they can bring their own ideas about games, base building, architecture, and so on. So I'll keep everyone posted about those events. Maybe something in the weekend. It's yet to be confirmed. So, but I'm excited to continue sharing content as we move along with the different designs. To be honest, it's difficult to improvise some of these designs in the spot. So I'm thinking I'm gonna really start sketching before the stream what we want to build, and see if we can have a better idea. I also have a bunch of references and ideas that could work. But in a way, we're testing the engine, testing the kind of the building tools, and see if we can come up with those ideas within the game. So far, I'm pretty happy with these kind of improvisations that we're doing, but we certainly can do better as we go along. Yeah, I appreciate your comments, Sachin. So I'm gonna leave it here for today. It's just been, I think, enough building. I'm gonna save this construction. Let's just save it with a different name this time. And I did take note of one bug that crashed the game earlier, so we're gonna just make sure that we fix and do a patch as early as possible, so that nobody else runs into that bug. I think it's pretty straightforward for us to fix that. And yeah, thanks again for joining the stream, and I'll see you guys soon. I'll be posting on Discord. If you are not part of Discord already, join our Discord, and we can share more information about future events. Thanks for having me, and we'll be in touch soon.